Gentlemen, it's been a week and we have quite a lot to talk about. The world and the news in general is moving too fast to keep track of what's going on. We'll try to stay focused. We're Gen Z, white conservative males, and we have lived our entire life under persecution, especially the latter years of our lives. We've been told our entire lives, especially during the Obama administration, where it really ramped up, that white people are bad, men are bad, Christianity is bad. You should abandon all of those things, and we should punish the whites, the Christians, and the males, and take what they have and distribute it out to minorities, not just racial minorities. We're talking religious minorities. We're talking women. We're talking different genders that don't even exist. And this past week, we saw the left get especially desperate. On the heels of COVID, the truth was exposed to the world, and people don't buy into the propaganda bullshit anymore. White males are sick and tired of being persecuted against. We're sick and tired of being told that we're no good and not being given the same opportunities that the minorities are being given. White people are sticking to their roots, they're honoring their heritage, and they're taking back the country that they founded. I hate to break it to you. And the liberals are losing their fucking minds. Some things more important than others. We'll start off with this Sydney Sweeney ad that just got released. She does a commercial of her wearing a denim two-piece and says she has great genes because she's hot as shit. And the liberals took to social media to say that this is pure racism because she is an blue-eyed, blonde-haired Aryan. This is Hitlerian. And I mean, these folks on TikTok were bawling their eyes out and screaming as their septum piercing blew in the wind as they cried. What the hell is going on with the Democratic Party? Are they purposely self-imploding? What do you guys think?
It's exposing what they really feel towards the heritage of this country, the heritage of white people in this country. But we know that. It's kind of a question about was it intentional by American Eagle? I personally think it was. The people that were in charge of running that ad were there. One of them was actually Jewish and one of them was black. So it's not that running that ad is white people trying to take the country back. It is that it's stoking the flames of the divisions in lower class society. But we all know the Democrats and the left, once you boil down all their stuff, once you boil it all down, where it's like we have to accept the immigration, we have to empower the women, we have to empower the minorities, we have to give special treatment, and you can't criticize them, and you get outed for being racist or whatever. Um, we all know that it boils down to them just not liking white people. And you hear it everywhere. They take down the statues of Christopher Columbus, they take down statues of Confederate generals, everything they can do to sort of erase the history and demonize the white people. So what we're sort of seeing now is the resurgence of the white people being tribal. One thing I see a lot is at the beginning of our lives, all the way until we were 15 or so, the whole narrative was that everybody's the same and everybody has equal opportunities. We should treat everybody the same, regardless of their skin color, which still is pretty true, right? Like that's true. But what happened was white people realized that the other groups are going to have an in-group preference much higher. Like let's say, for example, the Indian people are going to be super nepotistic about their hiring. They want other Indians to be hired.
It's Nazi propaganda because nobody wants to see a fat pig in plus size jeans. And 20 years ago, this wouldn't have been an issue. The woke media mob, they're so bored. they'll come up with anything and everything to start a fire. And, can't keep adding fuel to this fire. You just got to ignore them. They're going to cause some chaos. Ignore them. Let's run with this American Eagle. Hot chicks are back. 2025. I like Sydney Sweeney, man.
Regardless of your racial and gender identity, as you said, Joey, nobody wants to look at a big, disgusting, slobbering, fat, retarded, lesbian pig. Nobody cares if it's a girl. Nobody cares if it's a boy. Nobody cares if they're black, yellow, or white. It doesn't matter. People are sick and tired of seeing big, disgusting, ugly people on every single billboard, every single magazine, every commercial, every ad, every TV show. America's sick of it. So stop showing it to us. This is where the culture is trending. In fact, the culture has gone so far to the right and have nestled themselves so close to the First Amendment that American Eagle is actually late to the game. We needed this years ago. People are upset because she's white and she's beautiful. How about just be upset that she's beautiful and you're a big, disgusting, fat blob pig whore? Why don't we talk about that? It's not about race. It's not about gender. Beautiful people deserve to be paid to be beautiful, not big, fat, disgusting, sloppy, slobbering, floppy hand, retarded pigs that have been taking over mainstream media for the past 10 years. This is a micro example of the red hot racial environment in America and across the world. This past weekend, there was a major hate crime against white folks trying to have a good time in a night out in Cincinnati, Ohio. Now, Cincinnati, Ohio is great. It is one of the reddest major cities in the great state of Ohio. The problem is these folks decided to have a night out in the inner city. Now, as you all know, every single downtown area in the entire country has been taken over by the Democrats. Democratic judges, Democratic mayors, Democratic city councils, and they've made these downtown areas cesspools for immigrants and low-income minorities that they have forced into these densely populated areas. What I saw in these videos was absolutely disgusting, and the Ohio government didn't do a goddamn thing about it. Not a goddamn thing. But you know who did? Someone that's not even in the Ohio government, Vivek Ramaswamy, who is running for the gubernatorial office in 2026. If I was running against him, I'd be worried. He reached out to the woman who got knocked out cold, Kimbo Slice, face smacked the fucking pavement. He reached out to her and he talked to her. And he provided aid when her own government couldn't. What's up with that? Why are Americans standing for weak local governmental leadership? Why are we settling for J.B. Pritzker in the great state of Illinois? He's literally the scum of the earth. And I'll go on the opposite side of the spectrum. Why are Texans settling for Greg Abbott, the Israeli puppet, the Zionist that has sold Texas's soul to foreign nations? Look at any single state in the union. We can do a lot better than this. This is why our cities are fucking disgusting. By cornering immigrants and minorities into a cesspool, that fuels the fire for them to hate us and commit these hate crimes against us.
So obvious. I mean, this is more of a symptom than the root cause. Like the crime in the inner city has been allowed to run free and sort of rule the city. Obviously, that's the case in most liberal cities. A lot of places have nice enclaves, but no one can deny that there's not crime-ridden shitholes in every single major Democratic city. The result is what we saw in Cincinnati. It's not clear to me that this was a racial hate crime. because I see the black people do it to each other all the goddamn time. You know, they curb stomp them, they shoot them for no reason. They gang up and jump them and mug them, and it's a horrible situation. What I think needs to happen is we need to acknowledge that these places are dangerous. The people that live in them are what makes them dangerous, and we need to open up the prisons. We need to be sending these people all to jail. If everybody in that video got 20 years or more in prison, they'd be a lot less likely to do it again. The people that are seeing them get sent to jail would be less likely to do it again because it's unforgivable. And no, I don't think this is exclusively a black people problem. While they are overrepresented in events like this, I think the justice should rain down equally on anybody who does some of this behavior. And people can't be afraid to call it out for what it is. When you see something happening and you feel like you need to hold back on what you're going to say about it, even if it's the truth, then that's a sign of a failed society. You need to be able to call out the truth, especially when it's something that involves violence, people nearly dying, people getting hurt badly on a otherwise pleasant night out. So my answer, crack down on the crime. Harsher punishments. We saw it worked in El Salvador. So let's do it. I don't care what they have to say, honestly. I'm sure me and people across this country have had enough of this inner city violence. So fire away, Donald Trump. Fire away. And Vivek, I want to see change. I don't want to hear words. I don't want to hear people say we should do something about this. I don't want to hear Trump say we can't do this anymore. We have to stop this. I want you to stop it. The people that are saying that we have to stop this are the ones that need to stop it. While there's definitely a number of solutions, let's just go with the easy one. We got things that are against the law already. Put them in jail for it.
On July 21st, Dr. Chris McCurdy appeared on the Huberman Lab podcast. Dr. McCurdy is a professor of medicinal chemistry at the University of Florida, and he's the world's leading expert on kratom and other plant-derived medicinal compounds. Andrew Huberman received massive pushback for making negative statements against kratom very recently. So he brought Dr. McCurdy onto the podcast to clear the air and demystify the truth around kratom. Just 1 week after the podcast, the HHS responded with massive regulatory action that helps kratom. The FDA has formally requested to schedule 7-hydroxymitragynine in semi-synthetically or concentrated products. The exact level has not been disclosed yet, but we are thinking it'll be Schedule 1. Thanks to Dr. McCurdy's research, RFK Jr. was able to single-handedly save the entire kratom industry and empower millions of Americans in one swift regulatory action.
I think it's great. Obviously, we knew about 7.0. Lou was kind enough to warn us about it. I wasn't really sure what it was. I started seeing it around. I started seeing pills on the wall at the smoke shop, and I saw somebody buy a lot of those pills. And so upon reading into it, I thought, okay, synthetic kratom can't really be that terrible. I read that the regular leaf kratom, your body will make it into 7.0. So I was confused about the efficacy. But once I saw the pills, once I saw the addicts, all the stories about, oh, it was worse than heroin getting off of those, um, things like that, it seems unnecessary, right? We have a good thing here. We have good leaf kratom. They've been doing it in Malaysia for thousands of years, and people are trying to ruin it. And so I was worried that they were going to schedule the whole thing, and I was going to have to live the rest of my life buying kratom from a drug dealer or not doing it at all. But I do want to say based on my impression of the FDA, based on my impression of how the government runs, I think they did a surprisingly good job here because scheduling the compound 7.0 without scheduling Kratom as a whole is what has to happen. You know, if we can make the public aware about, oh, 7.0 is really dangerous, but Kratom has a lot of benefits when used in the right way, then that'll be the best possible outcome. And they did it. So I'm really pleasantly surprised there.
Yeah. I'd say it was long overdue. Same with you, Chet. I'd go into those smoke shops trying to get my Vivas in, and I would just see people who aren't educated about the product as much buying whatever the hell synthetic types of kratom that are available. So I think this is going to be good for the future of kratom users to actually label what's safe to use and what's not safe to use. And I'm not going to lie, Chet, I was a little bit worried about our future as well. So, I contemplated if I'd have to email a guy out in Southeast Asia to get the hookup. So with all that being said, Lou, where do you think we stand with the future of kratom?
Just to set the stage, kratom is an ancient herb that originated in Southeast Asia. And it's been used for thousands and thousands of years by the native population as a tea or a chewed leaf for energy, pain relief, and mood enhancement. The men that worked the fields in the rural parts of Southeast Asia would chew the leaf throughout the day to give them a boost of energy and to ease any pains they have from manual labor. And then at nighttime, in their culture, they do not drink, and drinking is at least frowned upon. So they take a larger dose of kratom that will act as more of a sedative to help them unwind and unlock social lubrication so that they can enjoy their night before the next day of work. We have thousands and thousands of years of human interaction with kratom that proves there are no long-term effects to kratom use. Kratom is extremely complicated. It contains over 40 alkaloids, with mitragynine and 7-hydroxymitragynine being the most studied. Mitragynine is the active compound in kratom that makes you feel great. If you look at a kratom bottle from the convenience store or the smoke shop or online, typically the amount of kratom will be measured in milligrams of mitragynine. For any true kratom product, it will also say on the bottle less than 0.05% 7-hydroxymitragynine. There are trace amounts of 7-hydroxymitragynine in true kratom leaf products. In most cases, manufacturers that comply with regulation, there is zero trace of 7-hydroxymitragynine in kratom products, but they remove liability by saying 0.05%. As research around 7-hydroxymitragynine has ramped up in recent years, manufacturers have been coming out with 7-hydroxymitragynine products. This meaning that rather than having mitragynine as the active ingredient, they have 7-hydroxymitragynine as the active ingredient. They are completely different compounds. 7-hydroxymitragynine is not kratom, and it is not mitragynine. Mitragynine targets the serotonin receptors in your brain primarily, and 7-hydroxymitragynine is a pure opiate. It has the same exact effects as an opiate, and it has the same withdrawal as an opiate. It's not safe, and it's not kratom. These 7.0 suppliers marketed their products as kratom-derived or kratom isolates. So when you're at the store, something you need to know to avoid when you're shopping for kratom products is to avoid kratom-derived or kratom isolate products. This is not kratom. These are semi-synthetic knockoffs of the compound, made in a lab, not picked off of a plant in the ground. What you should look for is companies that are GMP certified. This is good manufacturing practices. This is a common certification for most dietary supplements. It basically means that they have a third party come in and say, yep, they're doing everything right. It demystifies all the confusion about what's actually going on in the plants that are making these supplements we're consuming. And then look for manufacturers that are KCPA compliant. This is the Kratom Consumers Protection Act, which is backed by the American Kratom Association, the biggest nonprofit that supports kratom regulation. Kratom regulation is great for kratom. Kratom regulation will not only protect kratom, but it will protect kratom users by putting firm guidelines in place to make sure that this kratom is made safely for human consumption and removing the synthetic versions from the market. This paves the way for kratom to really grow and expand to new channels, reach new levels, and be widely accepted by society. The scheduling of 7.0 is the best thing that could possibly have happened to kratom right now. I've talked to folks that work in sales for major kratom manufacturers, and business has been at all-time low in the past few months because of 7.0. 7.0 is flying off the shelves. They're able to have a lower price point at the shelf for a bigger punch than regular Mitragyn and kratom products. It's because it's not kratom. It's fake made in the lab, cut with a bunch of other bullshit, and it's killing people. So let's get rid of this shit. Let's market real kratom, and let's make kratom great again. This is the first time we've ever seen major regulation in support of kratom, aside from when Trump's drug czar from his first administration decided to halt the ban of kratom, 2016. We need more of this. We need RFK Jr. to continue to push the Kratom Consumer Protection Act to ensure that consumers always have access to kratom and allow it to grow to the amazing medicinal tool that it should be for people with chronic disease and people with addictions.
All right, for all you Nimrods out there listening, I know we got a couple of regular listeners now, which we appreciate. Lou, I'd like Lou to give the rundown on healthy kratom use. It's kind of a blurred line right now. Not a lot of people know exactly what they should be doing, what their limits can be, because you want to have both the energy and mood boosting, and you want to have the pain relief and the general the uplifting aspect, where you sit down with your boys and you throw on a thriller and lock in. So, Lou, what's the best way to go about it? What's the best product to use? And how can people make sure they're not hurting themselves with this stuff?
In Southeast Asia, they've been consuming the kratom leaf for thousands of years. We know this is safe. We have proven use cases. So for starter, I would recommend the traditional use of kratom via the leaf as a powder or the whole leaf. The leaf itself has a lower and more balanced alkaloid concentration. And if you were to go to the extract route, which basically extracts different alkaloids directly out of the plant itself, it kind of disconnects you from nature. There's this like obvious disconnection from nature in any processed products. And being that there is not firm regulation in place, I would proceed with caution when it comes to consuming concentrated or extracted kratom products. Up to this point, we've only been talking about kratom products. There are good concentrates and extracts, but they have to be coming from a good source. You need to know where the manufacturer is sourcing their kratom from and what alkaloids are they pulling from the kratom. What are they extracting from the plant itself? There isn't a whole lot of transparency from most manufacturers. Obviously, avoid any semi-synthetic derivatives. This is not kratom. These are chemical compounds that are a copycat of some of the alkaloids within kratom. And they're dangerous. They are meant to make you addicted. They are meant to trick you. They are meant to pull you in at a lower price point and make you a slave to them forever. Stay away from semi-synthetic kratom derivatives. Stay away from kratom isolates. These are not kratom products. these are fake. Synthetic means fake. Make sure they're GMP certified. Make sure they are KCPA compliant. And I think you'll be okay. Some things to look for in the bottle is the word Mitragyna speciosa. This is the scientific name for the kratom plant. If you see Mitragyna speciosa in the ingredients, you know they used actual kratom. And whatever the extract may be, at the very least, you know they extracted compounds from the plant itself, and it wasn't manufactured in a lab. This is key. Obviously, children should avoid any psychoactive substances until their brain's fully developed around 24, 25 years old, whether it be kratom or marijuana, alcohol, or any other psychoactive substances. Obviously, we know that humans aren't fully developed until they're 24 to 25 years old. Psychoactives always have some sort of effect. There's no proof that kratom has a positive or negative effect on your development, but there's just not enough evidence for us to make a conclusive decision. So don't risk it. So in summary, stay away from derivatives, stay away from semi-synthetic or synthetic. Proceed with caution when it comes to concentrates and extracts. You have to vet the manufacturer before you can trust them. There are companies like OPMS that have alleged kratom concentrates that come in these tiny little tinctures, and they are extremely powerful. There is no way to measure how much you're consuming at once. So inherently, you will take too much and get hooked and increase your tolerance. And these little shots from OPMS are not kratom. They are semi-synthetic. They aren't necessarily 7.0, but they're not kratom. They use different alkaloids that are not reflective of the true concentration of the 40 alkaloids in the traditional kratom leaf. Proceed with caution when it comes to concentrates, especially, and also vet the manufacturer before you consume any extracts. If you want some recommendations, the most transparent company by far is Viva Zen. They have their own island that they produce their own kratom at. They have a Mitragyna speciosa farm on this island where they make their own kratom. It's organic, and they're GMP certified. They're KCPA compliant. Vet the brand before you consume. Those are just some high-level things that you can do to make sure that you're picking the right product. What else, guys?
Solid. What did you mean by there are two types of kratom consumers? I know there's people that go after the mood boost and the energy and opioid addicts, but where do we draw that line?
Yeah, for sure. So essentially, kratom users are bucketed into two segments. There are those who seek a mood boost or a stimulating effect similar to that of caffeine, often in replacement of caffeine. This is about the 1 to 5 gram of kratom leaf range. This could be translated to roughly 40 milligrams of mitragynine in a kratom extract. Now, the next tier of kratom user is seeking more of a sedative effect. This is 5 to 10 grams or 80 to 160 milligrams of mitragynine in one sitting. There are 23 million daily kratom users. This is far more than retail scan data suggests. Dr. McCurdy works with all the top kratom suppliers, and based on their research, they know that there are 23 million daily kratom users. Well, if the retail scan data is telling us that consumers aren't buying kratom at a fast enough rate to consider these 23 million consumers daily users, this would suggest that they are consuming kratom at a lower rate and a lower dose. This means the vast majority of people are using kratom appropriately and effectively at a proper dose to give them the effects that they desire, which is stimulation. This further proves that kratom, a natural plant, is not addictive. You can't OD on it. And it can target the same receptors in your brain that are addicted to all these harmful substances. When it comes to treating pain relief, kratom targets 3 parts of your brain: serotonin, which is the mood part of your brain, the mood enhancement part of your brain. It targets the pain receptors, and it targets the part of your brain that stimulates focus. You know, we have never treated pain in traditional medicine with a substance that hits those 3 pillars. Whether it be a medication or any other type of treatment, we've never done that combination of stimulation for pain relief treatment. According to kratom users, including myself, when I was in the hospital for 48 hours with broken bones, waiting to get into the operating room, the morphine didn't work, the fentanyl didn't work, the opiates didn't work. You know what worked? Kratom, Mitragyna speciosa. I took 40 to 80 milligrams of mitragynine from a vetted manufacturer, and I felt content for the first time in days. I was able to go to sleep that night because I took kratom. That's why I still take kratom to this day. I trust something that came from the ground, that came from the ground, from earth, that was gifted to me from God, far more than something that was made in a lab to make me a slave, to make me addicted, to disconnect me from nature.
Our Nimrods out there, if you just listen to what Lou says, then you got nothing to worry about. You got nothing to worry about. And it does reflect on the manufacturers that went after the 7.0. That sort of brings up parallels with all these other things that all these food and all these drug manufacturers are doing. They want you to get addicted to the pills. They want you to get addicted to the drugs. They want you to get addicted to the food. And they want you to get sick so that you need to go back, get more drugs, more food, more pills. That's it. So branching away from that with scheduling the dangerous parts of kratom and keeping the wholesome parts alive gives me a lot of hope, boys. Give me a lot of hope, Nimrods.
And for those beginners who are now learning about kratom and the safe ways to use it, Lou, how would you recommend a beginner to consume kratom starting out?
The most traditional use of the kratom plant is kratom leaf. You can take kratom leaf in the form of powder or the whole leaf. You can brew teas. You can mix it in with plethora of drinks. And actually, by mixing the kratom leaf into water or other liquids, it's less soluble. So it lowers the concentration of the alkaloids. It gives you more of a balanced effect. So if you're just new to kratom, much like coffee, rather than slamming a 200 milligram espresso shot and crossing your fingers, you should not go and consume an unmarked bottle of kratom concentrate. Use the leaf, and you will ease your way into it. You will get to know the plant. This is a very traditional spiritual experience. You cannot overdose on kratom leaf. Your body will reject it if you take too much. You will regurgitate it. Get to know the leaf. Start off with a little. Start off with 2 to 5 grams. You're probably not going to feel it your first time. The second time is always the best. This is a fact. This is a studied thing. If 2 to 5 grams isn't enough, 5 to 7. Then you'll feel it. Then continue to use kratom at low doses, more sporadically. Do not take too much at once. You're just going to ruin your tolerance, and you're going to get a sedative effect that the plant is not meant for. Low doses more frequently will be the best of the traditional kratom leaf. Once you get more experience and get to know it, I would recommend 40 milligrams of mitragynine from a vetted manufacturer that is GMP certified and KCPA compliant. Vivazens the most reputable we know. They actually introduced the kratom plant to the United States. I don't use kava. Kava gets you high. It gets you sedated, even at low doses. That's not what kratom is. Kratom is a stimulant at its heart. Kratom is meant to uplift you, motivate you, and give you calming energy to go about your day without the jitters of caffeine. That is what God put it in those fields for, so that the workers in Southeast Asia could pick it to get them through their day. It is a magical plant. There is not enough research around kava, but we know for a fact that big industry prefers kava to kratom. That's why every single kratom bar has kava shop or kava bar in their title, despite it being a true kratom bar. You will see kava signs far more often than you'll see kratom signs, because there is no regulatory pushback on kava. I don't know much about kava, but that's enough for me not to trust it.
Damn right. You don't need it. You don't need it. The kratom's good enough, Nimrods. You don't need it. I want to segue into a new topic here, but something I really want to hit on is what's happening in the UK. All you Nimrods know, I'm big on the UK. I like to read books like 1984. I like to read books like Brave New World that sort of go into the dangers of totalitarianism and surveillance, doublespeak, all things that we see pressures in our society today. The UK is furthest along, even in Europe. You know, the EU is crazy. They're going off the walls with regulations. Basically, you can't have a gun, you can't say what you want, anything like that, all because they gave women the right to vote. The new thing, Online Safety Act, it bans criticism or content that is now called illegal. So obviously you have child sexual abuse, sexual violence, extreme porn, fraud, inciting violence, and then illegal immigration and people smuggling. So whenever you make rules like this, whenever you ban speech online, whatever the Ministry of Truth decides is inciting violence, that's what it is now. So if they decide that saying my neighborhood doesn't look the same as it did 20 years ago, or there's too many gangs of illegal immigrants running around raping British girls, then now they have the power to put you in jail for that, just because they don't want you to say it. That's the slippery slope that we're dealing with. More on that, there's a new effort from the Labour government, which is the Liberals in the UK. People are trying to get around this ban. They can't see certain content on X or something like that. And so now they're in the talks of banning VPNs. And VPNs is how people would get around these regulations. I don't know if this is possible, but it is definitely something that they want, right? This Labour government is going crazy over there. They're going absolutely bonkers. The UK is an occupied country. It's no better than China or Russia. And I know it's funny because people used to say stuff like this about drinking and driving or wearing seatbelts, but this is a lot different. All new UK cars will now have breathalyzers and black box style recorders under Labour plans to align with the EU. How less free can you get? The UK is lost. They're slaves to their government. They're slaves. That's not the worst of it, though. I want to go into some history. This has to do with more immigration than this totalitarianism. Here is a celebratory picture of Oswald Mosley being knocked out by anti-fascists in 1962. In 1962, Britain was 99% white British, and that's okay. They're native, you know? Even with the blood and soil nationalism, even with the colonialism, it's okay because they're native to this land. You know, if they want to preserve their culture, that should be all right. But it's not because they're white. Oswald Mosley was an anti-immigration advocate, and he tried to stop the decline of the country, and he was crushed by the state. and betrayed by his own people. Now all the major cities are foreign, the state serves outsiders, and 100,000 plus British girls have been raped and tortured, a horror that's still ongoing and still getting worse. Nothing Mosley did even comes close to what these people have done to the United Kingdom. So disgusting. I hate it. It's the path that I think America's on that we need to stop, and I think we are, so that's good. But we've seen it in Australia, Germany, the UK, Ireland, everywhere, everywhere, and they're finally just now standing up to it. They finally realized, hey, this isn't about helping refugees anymore. This isn't about paying our debts for colonialism anymore. This is about people hating white countries. This is about people wanting them to stop existing, people wanting the empires to fall so that they can take over the world. That's it. Um, Interested if you guys got any thoughts on this. I just think it's a great example of 1984 in real life.
Yeah, despite what the mainstream media is reporting, the British Crown is still the epicenter of globalism. This is a fact. And every single major move to restrict humanity's freedom comes out of the UK. There is a reason there's such a push by the WEF and the globalists to move towards a digital age, a digitized society. Why is that? Well, that's because if I'm sitting here face to face with someone having a private conversation, the government can't censor that. But if I'm having a conversation via the internet that can be shut down at the snap of a finger, I can be censored. They want us to become integrated with technology so that they can flip a switch and destroy our communication pathways. Censoring the internet and social media is the same as censoring private speech between UK citizens. If they can upend the First Amendment of the United States Constitution in the United Kingdom, they can do the same thing here. We have to fight for freedom of speech and independence all across the world. Not with weapons, not with nuclear bombs, but with the might of the American economy and our military industrial complex that just fell into our lap. We have the cards, Keir Starmer. You don't get to tell us what you're going to do. We dictate what you do because you're a little speck on the earth that we can flick into oblivion if we want to. We separated from the crown, and after the World Wars, the British Empire fell, and we became the world hegemon. Donald Trump needs to assert his dominance. He is the first president in decades that is actually swinging his dick like he should. And I hope he puts his foot down. What are they going to do? What are they going to do when we impose 100% tariff? Nothing. They're going to retract their statement and restore freedom of speech in their country.
Let's go, Trump. Set the example, lead by example. We can't let our worlds end like this. We can't let the countries that were great for thousands of years go down the shithole like they are right now.
And we could have been on this path. Kamala Harris said in many interviews that she wanted to censor people in some way, shape, or form. And people of UK are enslaved. They don't have a lot of freedom with that. In the United States, that's the strongest thing we've ever had. The right to say whatever the fuck we want to say. And this is where our faith in Trump is going to show. Is he going to defend us, or is he just going to back down like a loser? So that's the most important thing to me, and I think it's the most important thing to this podcast, the right to say whatever we want. And it's a necessity for the United States.
Definitely. And I actually want to parlay this into a broader conversation. We're talking about the power of the British crown. Where does that power come from? It comes from the Rothschild family. Who's the Rothschild family? They were the head of the banking cartel for generations. As many of our listeners know, world-renowned economist Richard Werner went on the Tucker Carlson podcast this week to expose the link between banking, war, and the CIA. And it kind of broke the internet. He shared that during World War I, the head of the German central bank and the head of the American Federal Reserve were brothers, Max and Paul Warburg. What Carlson and Werner didn't mention was that the Warburg brothers also happened to be Jewish Rothschild bankers. The key takeaway from the discussion was that the private banks colluded to fund both sides of the war. That's bad. That is so, so bad. And we need to be shouting that from the rooftops. They have been doing this, unfortunately, since the ancient empires, and the central banks are still completely connected today, colluding against humanity. Now, the media has labeled this discussion as anti-Semitic simply because the Warburgs are Jewish, even though this indisputable fact that they are Jewish was never mentioned once in the podcast. Why is that, gang?
I know why. It's because it's the easiest way to shoot it down. It's the easiest way to convince the 50% of normal people out there that it's a bad thing, right? You call something fascist, you call something anti-Semitic, you call somebody racist, whatever it is, you're basically eliminating them from the attention of 50% of people who are all liberals and they're all fucking stupid as hell. So remember that. That's their number one play. That's called running the ball. Call something anti-Semitic. And people are getting over it. They're finally figuring it out. Thank God. Thank God, literally. Because this is what we need. Finally, after so long, we're going to see truth come to the front and speak its voice into the world.
Yeah, and you're talking about truth. If you've studied H.G. Wells or even read his book, The New World Order, which has inspired a lot of what Alex Jones preaches today, you would already know that the private banks have had a stranglehold on humanity since the ancient empires. Let me bring us back to the ancient empires really quick and walk us to this conversation that happened with Tucker Carlson this week. The merchant class and nobles that proctored ancient diplomacy were financed by private banks. Money houses would finance both sides of the war, and the winner would now be in debt to the financier. This vicious cycle continued for centuries. And then in 1815, it reached a boiling point. The Rothschild family rose to power in the ashes of Napoleon's defeat. We've talked about this before, guys, but a Rothschild spy was sent to monitor the battle and fled the battlefield as soon as victory was declared. The spy was able to reach the London branch of the Rothschild Bank 20 hours before the news publicly reached London. So the Rothschilds were able to put out a rumor to the London Stock Exchange that Napoleon had actually won the war. This news caused a 98% stock crash in London, and the Rothschilds bought the entire British economy. The very next day, news reached London that Napoleon had in fact been defeated and stuck sword, which enabled the Rothschilds to rule England for generations. Guys, the Rothschild banking cartel funded both sides of every single war since the 1800s, and they're still doing it today, and made interest off of loans given out to countries to fund wars. That's their fucking business model. This is not new information, but I'm very glad that Tucker Carlson is making these cut and dry, proven facts mainstream.
Hell yeah. If you guys didn't know that, you're not going to make it. But now you do, so you are. I didn't know about this, so maybe a lot of people don't. But in 2008, Epstein went to prison. He was serving an 18-monther down in Florida Panhandle. And he's got a ranch called the Zorro Ranch. And he also has a trust called the Zorro Trust. And in August of 2008, the Zorro Trust claimed a winning Powerball ticket in Altus, Oklahoma, for an $85 million jackpot, and they received $29.3 million after taxes. So that's Epstein's Zorro Trust. He used that for donations to politicians in New Mexico. and that's where the Zorro Ranch was. But he won that one day after his incarceration began in 2008, and the lottery that they drew, the Powerball drawing, wasn't televised. They delayed the televised lottery draw, and that fueled suspicions of fraud or money laundering. So obviously, Epstein rigged the lottery. He won it because he went to prison and he got some extra cash out of it. They delayed the tapes just like they did in the prison video where they knocked out the 3 minutes in the middle where somebody went in there and killed him or let him out. And no, I didn't know about this. I mean, it was mind blowing that this guy got away with so much. I mean, it's not that mind blowing now that I know he blackmailed everybody and he could basically do whatever he wanted with all that power. I just want to see this list come out finally. I want to see people go down. I don't even care if the economy implodes. I don't care if World War III starts. I don't care if we all die. I want to see that list come out.
We're going to have to go through some growing pains in order to fully drain the swamp and reestablish the great American Republic. You know what? Maybe Epstein just was the luckiest man in the world. Maybe he just happened to win the damn Powerball and stumble upon hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars that he would then launder to these major clients through his fake financial management company. What I also want to talk about is we keep being told that these 14 terabytes of video from the SDNY branch of the FBI are just commercial child porn. There's no videos of Epstein and his victims and his clients committing atrocities on children. Fine. Maybe the evidence at SDNY is just commercial child porn. Maybe it is. It probably is. They're watching it. I'm sure they're telling the truth. But that doesn't mean that there isn't blackmail somewhere else. And I'll tell you what, if there is blackmail, which there is, it's not in the hands of the Trump administration. It is in the hands of the blackmailer, not the blackmailee. It is in the hands of the individuals
Of Israel.
There we go. It's in the hands of Benjamin Netanyahu. This is why he shockingly shows up at the White House in the AM immediately after the late night release of the Epstein memo from the DOJ. And if I haven't convinced you yet that there is blackmail video, do you have cameras in all the bedrooms in your house? I sure don't. How about the bathrooms? Who would do that? They don't even do that at public restrooms. They don't even do that at the fucking movie theater. Why were there cameras in the rooms where girls were being raped on Epstein's properties? Normal people don't have cameras in the goddamn bathroom. You fucking morons. He blackmailed them all. But not Trump. Not Trump. Not tonight.